Hello and welcome to Spokane County Spotlight. I'm Commissioner Al French, and my guests today are Chad Coles, Spokane County Engineer, and Bob Keneally, Maintenance and Operations Superintendent. Hi, Chad and Bob. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Al.
Hi, Al.
Thanks for asking us.
Today, the topic of the program is winter operations and snow removal for Spokane County Road Department. I've asked Chad and Bob here today because as the county engineer and maintenance supervisor, these men are on the front lines keeping Spokane County road conditions safe during our unpredictable winters. Before we get started, gentlemen, we've had a mild snow season thus far. What are the meteorologists predicting for the rest of the winter in our region?
You know, Al, it depends on who you listen to, but they're predicting a La Nina winter. And I think some sources are saying that the winter will be comparable to last year. Really, it doesn't matter. We're ready for whatever comes. Crews are ready, they're very motivated, and we'll get the job done. So whether it's a lot of snow or not much snow at all, we'll be there.
Great. Well, with 2,500 miles of roads to maintain, Spokane County has the largest county road system in the state of Washington. What type of roads make up this system?
Well, we have a unique system. It's different than any other county in the state. 2,500 miles. It's a lot of roadway. We have 700 miles of arterial roads, which is about 28% of our road system. We've got 1,400 miles of paved roads and about 1,100 of gravel roads, unsurfaced roads. Unusual, about half and half split, and about 16% urban and 84% rural roadways.
So can you give our audience a glimpse into what it takes to maintain this road system, especially in the winter months?
Well, just an overview of Bob's department. He's got 120 employees, highly motivated, highly skilled employees, 100 pieces of equipment, rolling stock to help maintain the roadways, 6 maintenance shops, and about $21.5 million of annual budget, $3 million of which we apply towards winter.
Yeah, and we've got different types of equipment out. As you know, we've got the plows with sanders that we convert from the summertime where they have just a general box for hauling material. We convert those to plows and sanders, and then we've got the graders, a number of graders. We've got de-icers that put material down, and then if it really gets bad, like in 2008, we've got big blowers that can really do the job.
Outstanding. So can you give us an inside perspective of what operations look like when the Spokane region is hit with a heavy snow?
Sure. We have a couple priorities that we go through when the snow really hits. Our first priority obviously is the arterials, the main arterials. That could be roads like Daymount Spokane or Cheney Spokane. Then we'll go ahead and hit the second arterials, roads like Elder or Bruce would be an example. And then finally we get into the neighborhoods. We start with the hilly neighborhoods and then get into the flat neighborhoods, that type of thing. Something that is important to let citizens know about is that just because we start an event, a snow event, if we get hit again the next day, we have to start over. So some folks get concerned about that. My road wasn't plowed, and it's because we had to start the whole system over again, start with arterials. We'll normally get out when the snow gets to about 2 to 4 inches. We're on the road working it, and we'll get the snow out. To go through the whole county system, all the road system, it takes about 3 to 4 days to do that.
So earlier this year, Spokane County was hit with the heavy snow, followed by an early thaw, and then tremendous amount of moisture. How did all of these factors affect our operations?
Well, if you recall, we had flooding throughout the county. We had creeks leave their banks, crossover roads. We had a number of roads closed because of culvert washouts. Our initial response cost $1.2 million to just get roads back open. We estimated total dollar impact of $4.5 million on that one emergency event.
So this really constituted a state of emergency for counties across the state. And so what resources become available during a countywide state of emergency?
Well, as you know, Al, when the Board of County Commissioners declares an emergency, that opens up a range of opportunities for us to be able to respond more effectively to that emergent situation. We have advanced purchasing power, so we can short circuit some of the normal processes we have to go through, and we also have emergency communications. The emergency management group opens up. It just helps us tremendously in terms of responding to the crisis.
So to declare a state of emergency, the county can do it at a local level, but that really doesn't do a whole lot for us in terms of resources other than changing some of our local policies. But when the governor steps in, like when the governor calls for a state of emergency for the county, what happens when that happens?
That's the next level. As the emergency expands, or as the crisis expands, the governor declares the emergency. It opens up a wider range of resources. We get access to some of the state resources. National Guard can respond, WSDOT, and it also provides access to the next level.
So does the county get any federal money then to help us when there's a state of emergency declared?
That's the next level I was referring to. If this governor declares that state of emergency, then it can go to the federal government, and the president can declare a state of emergency, and that's when FEMA comes in, and we get access to not only FEMA dollars but also some federal highway dollars, depending on the damage.
Okay. So when we have these types of winter and spring emergencies, what's the impact of the summer construction season and the budget for those projects?
Well, as we talked about, there's $21.5 million allocated to maintenance, operation, and preservation of our network. So when those funds are expended in emergency response, it cuts back on what we can do with essentially preservation, because we have to provide those other services. So as you know, preservation is one of our biggest return on investments. So it really hurts in terms of the future preservation of the network.
So if the roads in the rural parts of the county get really bad before the spring, are we able to start grading in the winter months?
That's a really fine balance, and you're referring obviously to the unpaved roads or gravel roads. It's a very, very fine balance, because you have to have the unpaved roads frost-free. They can't have frost in it and that sort of thing, or frozen. And then you can't have them too wet, because you'll get your equipment stuck in the roads. So there's a real fine balance. Generally speaking, we start our grading on the unpaved roads or gravel roads in the springtime.
Okay. So, as an elected official, we deal with complaints and suggestions and ideas from our constituents. And one of the most frequent complaints that I receive is about the presence of potholes. First of all, can you describe how does a pothole get created, and what is the county doing to fix them?
Well, potholes almost always in an asphalt road begin with a crack in the surface of the road. The crack allows for intrusion of water, which weakens the subgrade. We get frost in the wintertime, we get a frost heave action, we get that to uplift, and it just grows exponentially from there.
Yeah, and then what we do as far as the crews, Al, we'll fill those potholes, but it's a temporary fix in the wintertime. Our asphalt plants close down usually somewhere in the middle of November, reopen in the middle of April, and that's that hot mix that we like to use in the summertime. In the wintertime, we use a cold mix product, and it's very temporary. We might have to go out in a couple days if it's a heavily traveled road like an arterial. So when the crews aren't plowing, they'll go out with what we call a patch crew and patch those potholes. So we might have to revisit it, like I said, and some folks might think, geez, they just filled that thing and now it's back open. Well, it's because it's a temporary fix.
Yeah, and this is not unique to Spokane County. This is a condition that counties across the country have to deal with when they're dealing with cold conditions and cold winter conditions.
And we're always looking for better products too. If we're always testing that. If we find a better product, we'll use it. We'll buy that product. So
Well, and I know that for constituents, it's frustrating because when they see us patch a pothole and, you know, it's a temporary solution till we can get to construction season and do it with the right products. But then when the pothole comes back, the initial reaction is, well, they just didn't do their job right. Well, no, it's the nature of the product, and it's not a permanent solution until we get to, you know, that spring and summer construction cycle where we can do a more permanent fix.
Exactly.
You were going to say something, Chad?
And the best solution is getting back to that preservation piece. If the road is in really good shape to begin with, it doesn't start.
Right.
So that's where that preservation part of what we do is so important.
So we all care about the material that goes into our Spokane River. So what is the county road department doing to ensure that we're being environmentally responsible?
We actually have a whole division within the department that is dedicated to environmental issues. That's what they focus on. In the maintenance area, we have also best maintenance practices that processes that we constantly train our crews on. There's a lot of examples, and I think Chad's going to get into some of those, but we're very aware of that, and all the crews are trained.
Okay.
So,
Road, you know, a lot of folks are aware, road runoff is one of the biggest contributors to pollutants in surface waters, and it's one of those things that we strive constantly to work on and improve our best management practices, to work on our existing roadways to put filtration processes in place prior to either injection into the aquifer or into a surface water like the Spokane River. We've been doing over the last several years millions of dollars a year in work funded by the DOE, funded by our stormwater utility to retrofit those things into our current road system, and they go into all of our new construction.
Okay. So, you know, the road system is really the largest asset that the county owns on behalf of all the taxpayers within the county. So what are the most useful things that members of the public can do to assist your crews during a snow event?
well, they can, when they see a snowplow out on the road, and he's traveling, you know, the speed limit, whatever that might be, it's always wise to stay about 50 feet back in back of the plow. We've actually had some citizens that have tried to pass on the right side of a plow. That's not a real good idea because that's where the snow's going. So staying 50 feet back, not passing on the right, those are really important. We find some areas where cars are parked in the street instead of the driveway. Sometimes it's hard to get that car back in the driveway, but it sure helps the crews a lot if those cars are off the streets. And then garbage cans. We find a lot of garbage cans that are left out in the street, and the plows have to stop and maneuver around it. And so those are just some of the small things that could help us.
Well, and one of the things, and I've found myself behind a snowplow many a time, and I've always appreciated the fact that I would rather be moving slow behind a plow truck than not moving in the ditch stuff. And so, not that I've had to experience both of those, but so, you know, the Spokane County budget for winter road maintenance is roughly about $3 million. If the winter and spring thaw are milder than expected, what do those residual funds get used on?
It's really just the opposite of if we needed it for an emergent situation. We put it into that preservation piece that we've talked about. And what we found is the return on that investment is 6 to 1. If we do it right now, before it gets bad, it costs $1. If we wait 2 to 3 years, it costs $6. So that's where that money goes.
Well, and I can remember a metric that was used, and I think it's still appropriate, that for every $1 that you spend in maintenance, annual maintenance, you avoid $8 of reconstruction and stuff. So it's always a good investment to try and maintain those roads. And I think in reflection of that, the Spokane County just recently adopted our budget for 2018. And one of the things that we did as part of this budget is we provided access to an additional $1.2 million to your department to help address some of the preservation efforts.
Yes, and thank you for that.
You're
If
welcome.
I hadn't said it
Absolutely.
before, absolutely. And truly, it's going back into those preservation projects. We're able to get an additional, if I remember right, it's an additional 3 miles of roads that up to current standards in terms of the surfacing, and it'll pay big dividends in the end.
So during a snow event, how can the public check on the progress of how the county road maintenance is progressing?
Well, we have kind of a neat tool that we've had in place for about 3 years now, where we have GPS devices on all our county road equipment. And we have a portion of our website. If you go to SpokaneCounty.org, go under I believe it's your government on that main page, and go down to Public Works. There, in the middle of that page is a button that talks about snow routes, and it's a snowflake. Push on that, and when we're in a snow event, if you do it now, it may not be working. But when we're in a snow event, we have a map of the county, and it shows the last 24 hours of where our snow equipment has been, and tracks through it. There's a legend on there. It's really easy to read, but follow it. It'll show you within 45 minutes about of where that vehicle has been and where they've been plowing. Kind of a cool tool.
That also shows now when we have multiple events, you can see where the equipment starts back on the arterials also.
Yeah, I guess in my perfect world, I've always envisioned that tool that the public can go to on site would have a Pac-Man just eating up the snow. Is kind of now I've dated myself. So what sort of response should a citizen expect when they call in with an issue?
Well, first of all, they should call 477-3600. That's where we man our phones. And I want to just express to the audience that we try very, very hard to respond to calls within 24 hours. We've kind of put that time limit on ourselves. So they can expect a call back with a response. However, if we're in a snow event, or if there's a lot of potholes going on towards the springtime, we can get thousands of phone calls literally. So it's going to be a little slower to respond to those folks. What they'll probably see as a response, they'll see the roads plowed, or they'll see that pothole filled, and in that instance, they probably won't get a call back. But most of the other incidences in the wintertime, whatever that might be, we've got dedicated people that are going to answer the phones for their call-in, and then respond if needed to call that person back and talk to them personally.
So once the snow is gone and we're out with the graders trying to restore a grade and doing our preservation work, sometimes when you start to get to the end of the summer season, we have to deal with fire hazards. So it's difficult to have a grader out because a grader hits a rock makes a spark hits the field, and now we've got a fire that we've got to deal with and stuff. So maintaining the gravel roads is a real challenge and stuff. And so there are new techniques, there are different ideas. We were talking earlier about something that you might be experimenting with this upcoming summer season.
Yeah, and you're right, that you've nailed it. During the summer, it becomes incredibly difficult. Even if we can grade, the grading doesn't last because there's no moisture in the rock. But we've been talking to our neighbors and folks around the country about what they do with those types of roadways, particularly with high ADTs. So we've got a pilot program that we're running this year. We're going to do a stabilization of gravel roads with the high ADTs that we've had trouble holding that grade on, and we apply a magnesium chloride and roll it in. And we've done one road. We did one road this last year and had really good success. It stayed in place the entire season. So we're going to expand that process. Hopefully, get all of roads with an ADT of 250 and higher. and make that, use that treatment on it and see how it works. Now, there's some caveats in terms of what types of roads we can use it on, but we've had some success, and we have some pretty high hopes for that process.
So for the benefit of our audience that doesn't understand maybe engineer geek talk, ADT stands
Oh,
for.
I'm sorry, I apologize. Average daily traffic. So it's
Very
the number
good.
of cars that go up and down the road every day.
Very good, thank you. And so,
Thanks for pointing that out.
yeah, not a problem. So, we do have a large number of gravel roads and stuff, and there is a process that we have in place. It's called a road improvement district that you can petition with the county to say, our property owners want to come together and self-tax themselves to be able to improve their road from a gravel road to a paved surface. And then once it becomes a paved surface, then the county maintains it from that point on and stuff. So talk very briefly about that program and how many projects can we get in a year?
The Road Improvement District program is just what you said. It's a citizen self-tax or a loan that the group of citizens takes out through a district that pays for that improvement, where we hard surface a road that's gravel and put whatever other amenities the neighborhood would like to put in place. We can generally get about one of those a year because of the process of putting together the district and voting on it. People vote, so it's not imposed by the county. It's something that they decide as a community to do. And so we put that together. We have a number of those in the hopper, and we bring, generally speaking, one. We haven't sometimes done two, but it taxes our ability to construct one. We oftentimes will do that with our own forces because they're a little less expensive. So generally one a year, and it's been a very successful program. We've done probably 200 miles over the years. We're the most successful in the state with that program.
Well, and one of the things that I really like about the program is that it is initiated by neighbors, and the neighbors are engaged in the process all the way through, up into and including the final construction closeout, and then the county will finance that project over, I think it's a 10-year period. And if a neighborhood wanted to engage in an RID, I think we even help contribute. I mean, part of that construction cost we pull out of the road fund so that the neighborhood isn't paying 100%.
Yeah.
They might be paying only 80% of it, and we would be covering the rest of it and stuff.
Yeah.
So we've talked a lot about roads and the impact that the winter months have on our road system, but we also maintain an awful lot of bridges in this county. I forget how many bridges?
166.
166 bridges.
166
and they
bridges.
all go somewhere.
They do. Some of them go not very far, but they all do. Yeah, and that's quite a challenge. I just heard today, it's timely, I just got news today that we're funded for 3 more bridge improvements through the state for the next 2 or 3 years. Very successful bridge program. We try to target the bridges that are failing, and we try to keep up on the bridges that need maintenance. So yeah, we do that. One of the things we found that with the last couple of disasters that we've run into is that we do have some bridges that have been in place for a long time that aren't fundable through the state, that we have to figure out how to do something with.
So as we wrap up things, are there any final messages or pieces of winter advice that you'd like to leave with our guest today?
Well, just the one that we always leave. Remember, it is winter. It's harder to drive around. Take your time. The roads are slippery. Give a lot of space between you and the car in front, and don't pass snowplows on the right.
Right. And no matter how slow traffic is moving on the road, it is still moving faster than it is in the ditch. So keep the rubber on the road.
There you go.
Well, I'm afraid that we are out of time. I'd like to remind our audience that this program and videos from all of our public meetings can be accessed on Spokane County homepage and on Spokane County YouTube channel. I'd like to thank my guests, Chad Coles and Bob Keneally, for joining me today. And I'm County Commissioner Al French. Thank you for joining us today for Spokane County Spotlight.